Okay, good stuff. So, welcome to another edition of the Ruck and Rise podcast. We have our first repeat guest on the on the show tonight. So, there's something to be said about this gentleman who's on for a second time, and we've only done, I think, maybe 6 episodes, something like that. So, kudos to Sachin Latti, who is on with us once again. Sach was on with us, I think, August 5th when he was just starting his big journey challenge, 22 marathons in 22 days. Now, Sach, welcome back again to the Rock and Rise podcast. You've since completed the 22 marathons in 22 days. So, the first question I have for you, how many pairs of shoes are you on now?
Yeah, I think for in August I went through two pairs. Yeah,
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 two pairs. It's about on average for the pairs that I was using about 500 kilometers
yep,
on a pair.
right.
So yeah, man, I go through I go through shoes a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. I believe it. Yeah,
Yeah,
because there's a lot more to come, from my understanding.
yeah.
So, yeah, yeah. So, first off, yeah, take me through the final. Like I say, when we spoke to you last, you were just sort of into the like fifth day, I think, of that journey. And so, take us through the last little bit on that, and how you're feeling afterwards.
Yeah, so I think the when I spoke to you on the I think it was the fifth day, it was a strong day for me. I was feeling
Yeah.
pretty good that day. After having the first 3 or 4 days hit some obstacles and whatnot, but I think the fifth day I was feeling pretty good, and then it was a grind, man. Like the from let's say day 6 to 11 or 12, it was it was hard.
Yeah. Oh,
A few of the issues are not issues, but some of the considerations that were making things a little bit more challenging was the temperature, like the heat,
okay.
and because in BC around the Okanagan or interior of BC, it gets really hot and dry. It's almost desert like.
Okay.
And
Right.
so the temperature was getting upwards of the high 30s to low 40s.
Ooh,
And then with the addition of the wildfires and the smoke from the wildfires, it really made things a bit more challenging for me because it was really hard to prepare for that kind of stuff because,
mhm,
creating the temperature environment, I can't really create temperature. I can only,
right.
whenever it's hot as it is or when it was during the summer, I would go out, obviously train in the hottest times, but in Vancouver and the lower mainland, I mean, 28 degrees or something, right? It's not like getting up
Yeah.
to 40 in Vancouver. So, and
Right.
to recreate the wildfire smoke and training in that was a challenge. I didn't really train in it. So it
Right.
was it
You
was
wouldn't
new
want to.
stuff for me.
Yeah.
No, no. But yeah, so in terms of the challenges, I think the heat and the smoke were significant.
Mhm. Oh, I believe it. And yeah, it was a really interesting August for the West Coast. I mean, not a great August as
Yeah.
far as that goes, with the amount of wildfires that were happening, and communities that were involved with it. So now in that journey, I mean, obviously, yeah, there were days where you had to face, the smoke and and the smog and all that stuff. And did the temperature change towards the tail end, where you had days where it was cooler and a little more enjoyable to run in?
That's a good question, man. So like once I exited or once we made it out of like the interior area, so when we got into like Squamish or Pemberton into Squamish, it was the drastic change.
Hmm.
The temperature dropped about 10 degrees ish,
Hmm.
and the smoke wasn't as bad as it was where I was previous.
Right.
So I was accustomed to that kind of smoke. So when I
Yeah.
got to the, Squamish, Whistler, those areas, it was smoky, but it was nothing compared to what I already experienced. So it almost felt like there was no smoke at all.
Right.
So so yeah, to answer your question, mm, it almost felt like I was back home when I started getting into that area because in the interior where I was in Ashcroft, where on ranches and some of those like a little wet in these places, it just didn't feel like it wasn't lush, it wasn't green, it wasn't what it is in Vancouver.
Right.
And so when I got to this Pemberton Squamish, that's when I started feeling like it was more like home because it started getting more lush, more green,
Mm,
more creeks, rivers, and like things of that nature. And so once I started seeing that, it became more familiar for me.
yeah.
And then almost automatically, it just felt more comfortable. Now it wasn't easier, but it just felt more comfortable.
Yeah.
And it was getting to a point where it was, it was getting fun at certain points, man. Like, because I'm not sure if you've ever been out here, but Squamish is beautiful, Pemberton's beautiful, Whistler's beautiful. I mean, it's really like amazing scenery and country in those areas. And not to say like Lillooet and Ashcroft aren't,
Right.
but not as beautiful for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, funny you mentioned that because I've never been out west, sadly, but that's the choice for Ali and I for the honeymoon. That's next summer. That's going to be our
Awesome.
honeymoon. Yeah, we're going to head
Where
to the
where
west
where are you
coast.
guys thinking?
Yeah, so we're gonna start planning it out pretty soon, I think. And we would like to, and we're gonna, pick everyone's brains for recommendations, and I mean, yeah, we've got lots of sort of peers and friends that are on the West Coast, and everyone I talk to, they have nothing but great things to say about this area and that area and all that. So I don't know. We're gonna try and hit as many great spots as we can, but we haven't sat down and mapped out the plan of the route yet. But yeah, we're open ideas. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, man. So like, I would obviously start thinking about like how long you're going to be going for, and then you can kind of narrow things down from that.
Yeah.
But before we continue, I got to say, man, congratulations.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, you guys got married, so man, that's awesome. And how's
yeah.
everything going?
It's great. And yeah, it's interesting because the wedding was the wedding was really a formality to our existing relationship and our existing life. So that it happened, and we just Ali and I just carry on as we were. But it's interesting because that wedding, like I don't know if you're following or not, but like I put a lot of time and
Yeah,
effort into that, and I was bridezilla for the last 9 months or whatever. I
awesome.
treated it like a mission, and so I had everything planned out, mapped out right to the final day. So and it couldn't have gone off any better, to be honest with you. It exceeded expectations, and we had a great time. We had a blast. We had a lot of fun. Great, food was great. The weather was great. We really lucked out. And so it's interesting. I'm coming off a bit of a high on that, right? Like it
Yeah,
was all this momentum moving into that. And then, the high point hits, and we had a few days of downtime at a resort just outside of Peterborough. And then, those following days after that, I just kind of had a bit of I don't know, I'm not going to say like I was down, but I was feeling like, um, a little lower than usual because I put so much time and effort into that, and then I was kind of like, well, okay, what now? It didn't take long because now I've got the second annual Peterborough Rucksack March for Remembrance coming up that I'm now tackling and planning out. So it was good timing, um, but yeah, it kind of led me to think when you completed the 22 marathons in 22 days, like, that was a huge accomplishment, a huge, undertaking. And by the way, congratulations on that as well.
thanks, man.
And it kind of led me to think, because, like I say, this wedding, I came off this big high. Did you find that yourself when you completed those 22 marathons that, the end state was, reached? And did you have any kind of sort of coming down off a high afterwards?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a good question. A lot of people have asked me that.
Mhm.
And so you said end state, right? That I am not at an end state,
Right, right.
right? So it's a continuation. Um, End state, maybe ask me that question again in summer of 2025
Yeah. Okay.
because I'm still kind of doing all the things. I'm still organizing things. I'm still, you know, on that path of training to run across Canada, right? So
Yeah.
really the 22 marathons for me was a training block, and that's essentially what it was. And with the idea of having it as a training block, I wanted to do more. So that's what expanded it to fundraising and charity and all the things that we did with it.
Hmm.
Now, next year, again, I'm going to have another training block. And again, we're going to be raising as much awareness as possible and funds for Honor House and Honor Ranch. And
Right.
so next year, Thunder Bay to Victoria. And then ultimately in 2025, the final sort of event, which is running across Canada. And
Yeah.
maybe ask me then, and I suspect I'll probably have some plans of things to do to kind of maintain it.
Hmm.
But after running the 22 marathons, fortunately or not, I mean, whatever you want to say, I had some significant CNS fatigue, so
Hmm.
central nervous fatigue, as you can imagine, when you're doing that much stuff, your body gets run down, and
Sure.
so I took that opportunity because I wasn't training, as nearly as much as I was, and I wasn't, I didn't run at all because consultation with my coach, you
Yep.
know, don't run for a bit
Yeah.
and just keep it
Yeah.
nice and light, have some fun. So
Yeah.
I took that opportunity to focus on a few other things, right? And
Right.
work on things that I hadn't had the time to work on while I was training and running and doing
Okay.
those things. So it was
Yeah.
just basically just shifting into a different area. And um, so I haven't had that sort of depressed down after an event. I have my normal sort of ups and downs that
Hmm.
normally happen,
Yeah.
but I don't think, anything that I've experienced or felt afterwards really had anything or much to do with finishing an event, if that makes
Sure.
sense.
Okay. Yeah, it does. Yeah. Um, Now you mentioned, yeah, coach sort of gave you a schedule not to run for a little while. Did you adhere to that?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
normally, um, yes, I did because he's my coach and I have him for a reason, and he
Right on.
has knowledge and experience that I don't have, and he can see around the corners that maybe I'm not able to, right? So
Yeah.
I chose him as a coach for a reason, and he understands me as a person, and he knows that I'm gonna want to just keep doing what I need to
Right.
do or what I want to do. But having said that, I listen to him 100%. Anytime I felt like I wanted to do something more, I would hit him up and be like, "Hey, what do you think of this?"
Hmm.
Because for me, the ultimate goal is to continue doing what I'm doing and get better. And
Right.
so he started off the conversation like, "Hey, man, you want to get better? This is what we got to do."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Cool, man,
Yeah.
easy."
And that, yeah, and I asked that question for a reason, and I sort of expected that that was the answer. That yeah, I followed the coach's instructions because he's my coach. Like that's your mentor, right? And
Yeah,
so you trust his knowledge and his experience, and because I know many athletes, and I've worked with many athletes over the years that they don't always adhere to those instructions. They don't always follow those plans, and it can backfire on them pretty quickly.
and honestly, man, like to that point, I was that guy, right? Like
Sure. We all
for
have
most of
been,
it,
I think.
right? And most of my training that I've done outside of this running stuff, I've been like a lone wolf and done it, right? Like kind of just
Yeah.
did my own thing. I would get input from people, and I would be like, okay, I can manage. I'll still do it anyways, right? But you know, I can recognize and reflect on whenever I did those things, it didn't really turn out the best, and
Yeah.
for me, I want to do my best. And if I want to do
Right.
my best, I got to listen to people who know more than I do and who have understanding of what's going on and what's not going on. And man, it was kind of a good break for me too, man, just to kind of recalibrate a little bit, man, because it was a grind, right? Like those
Sure.
22 days, it was a grind, and I wanted to kind of refresh my mind too. So now that I'm running again, in the last week or two, I've been running again, and it feels good. It's like exciting, like I feel
Right on.
fresh, and I feel like a level of mm, freedom, and I almost feel like running is way easier right now.
Awesome. Yeah. And I suppose, that's where the expertise and the experience from your coach comes into play, right? I mean, he knew the formula that was necessary for you and you followed it and here you are now back into running, and you're loving it. Whereas maybe if you hadn't have
Right.
adhered so strictly to that, you might have been like, I don't want to do this today.
No, for
So
sure. For
yeah,
sure, man.
yeah. I mean, there's a reason that we surround ourselves with mentors and good people that have knowledge and experience in areas that we need to draw from. And I think it's key to just bettering yourself and that constant development. If you want to do better at something, then you find those people that have the knowledge and experience, and you listen to them.
For
Yeah,
sure, man. I think, well, I mean, I can only speak for myself, really, and I can see, the development I've had over the last 2, 3 years, and
yeah,
most of it has, and mm, most of it has come from the guidance and support of other people,
sure,
right? And me being curious and asking questions, and
yeah,
then that two-way sort of conversation with coach, mentor, whoever it is, trying to have that two-way conversation so that I can learn and become better. Because at the end of the day, I'm just trying to be the absolute best version of myself, right?
right,
And right now it's really been focused on the physical aspect, but it's not just physical. I want to be the best version of myself on all levels, right? Like emotionally, relationship wise, financially, like all the things I'm trying to be better than I was yesterday.
yeah.
And it's always an ongoing thing, right? Talking to people and learning from others as much as I can.
It is, yeah, and you said it. I mean, and so it leads to me to sort of my next question, and maybe we'll sort of take it back to a little bit more background on, a few years back. Now, did you kind of reach out to some mentors and some individuals to sort of say, I know I listened to the Silver Core podcast, and awesome, by the way.
No, yeah,
And yeah, I drew a lot from it as far as a little bit more on your background and that sort of thing. So, going back to pandemic phase, were there some key individuals that you drew from at that time period to sort of maybe bring you out of a certain challenging phase and get you on track to where you are now? Because I got to say, man, you're crushing it now. You know?
I'm just doing my best, man. If
Right.
I'm crushing it, I'll let other people make that assessment. But
Yeah.
for me, I do feel like if I were to look at the last 2 years, if there's been a change or a delta or whatever that is, it's been forward
Mhm.
momentum through it, right? So, were there people? 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Like, so just give you a bit of a background, if you haven't, because I know in the Silver Core one that I just did recently, I didn't go dive deep really, but I'll share a little bit if you haven't, and if your listeners haven't heard much. So 4 years ago ish, I was going through a divorce, right? And
Mhm.
18 years in law enforcement, never really addressing some of my own issues as it relates to depression, anxiety, and these types of things.
Right.
And so I was struggling a great deal, and I recognized that I was, mm, I had some ownership in a lot of my relationship with all the relationship I had in my life, family,
Mhm.
ex-wife, everybody. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to take some ownership and my responsibility in those things. And that really started the movement in a certain direction. Now, I had a major depressive episode during that time, and I ended up seeing a physician and getting medication, and then uh, understanding that I have clinical depression and what that all means, and things that are associated to it. And so it was funny. I saw my doctor actually last week, and we're having some more discussions because I've been off my medication for a little bit of time now because I
Okay.
wanted to wean myself off,
Mhm.
and so I've been off for quite some time, maybe about 6, 7, 8 months. And so but now I'm starting to feel some of the lows that are associated to clinical depression.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I had a chat with him, and he's like, "Hey, man, like, so you had a major depressive episode a couple years ago. That means, from a medical perspective, that means, relapse into that depressive state is a 50% chance for the rest of your life.
Mm.
So you have to take that in consideration. And you're doing all the right things, eating well, exercise, connecting with people, all the things,
Mhm.
but maybe you should start looking at the medication again."
Hmm.
and it's not something that you should be ashamed of, or all the kind of sort of things that I've been feeling. Like, oh man, I don't want to go back on medication. I just
Sure.
already did
Yeah.
that. These things, right?
Yeah.
And but anyway, so having said that, well, I'll be going back on my medication next week.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair. Yeah.
But to the point, I was going through all that, and I really started the process on my own, right? Like I was struggling a great deal, man. Like I was really alone, or at least I felt alone. I felt really isolated. I felt disillusioned. I felt all the things that you may suspect someone might feel when they're feeling depressed at a really deep level.
Hmm.
And so I read a couple books and I started trying to move in a positive direction, but it was really tough, eh? Like I was really stuck. And I started running, and then through the running, it kind of helped, kind of put a band-aid on things a little bit.
Right.
And then in 2021, I ran my first 100K and raised money.
Hmm.
And on November 7th, 2021, I raised it was about 21 grand for the BC Yukon Legion for PTSD programs for veterans and first responders, right? So that
Yes.
was
Yeah.
I did that in 2021, and right after that, I was still super depressed. And so that's where I really started trying to reach out and find people, because I was
Hmm.
doing a lot of the stuff on my own, like for about a year, right?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was really slow going. Like my mental state wasn't really getting out of the ditch as
Right.
fast as I would have wanted it to, because I was
Hmm.
still really, I don't know, man, I was really like down, like really
Hmm.
down, like real
Yeah.
dark.
Right.
So I connected. I ended up meeting Sean Taylor in person in December of 2021 through Seb Lavoie, another friend of ours.
Hmm.
And I was tracking him for a bit because I wanted to. I knew what a tier one operator was, right? And
Yes.
and his social media platform it said JTF2, right? Cool, all great stuff.
Yep.
And so I was kind of curious because I was felt super isolated and alone, and I felt like I couldn't relate to anyone. So I thought, hey, maybe I can relate to someone like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was kind of like the only thing I was kind of thinking. So, anyways, we met in December 2021, and um, he was at the airport, and I was at work at the time, Vancouver Airport, and anyways, we met up after my shift, and we went for a coffee or bubble tea or something. I can't remember.
Right.
And anyways, it ended up being like a 3 hour conversation, just he and I just hanging out. And for me at that time, I really needed someone to talk to,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really needed someone to talk to that I could relate to,
Yeah.
even if it was just in my own head, right?
Yep. Yep.
And I really needed someone to talk to that I respected,
Hmm.
which was a real critical piece because whatever the reasons, there was other people in my life that may have wanted to help or may have wanted to engage with me at a certain level, but I may not have respected them the same way, and maybe not have seen them in a regard or in a way that I thought, oh man, I'm going to take some advice from this type of person, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So with Sean, we sat and chatted for a few hours, and it was real helpful for me. And that so after a conversation, I was like, hey man, can we kind of keep talking?
Mm.
And he was like, if you think it'll help. I was like, yeah, I think it'll help, right? And so he lives in Rossland. It's about a 7 hour drive from where I live, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's out in BC. It's in the mountains. It's a smaller town, right?
Hmm.
And I didn't even know where it was. I had no clue.
Yeah.
So I'm talking,
Yeah.
I'm talking to him, and so, anyways, long story short, we started having conversations through Zoom,
Hmm.
and so maybe 80% of the week, so let's say 5 days, 4 to 6 days a week, we would have a Zoom call. And there was no time limit in those conversations. It could be an hour, 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking and asking were there people that helped, and I mean, I credit him to a
Sure.
lot of stuff
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I needed some help at a time when I really, really needed someone to talk to and
Yeah.
someone to connect with. And look, I don't know where I'd be now if, I didn't engage with him on that day.
Right.
it's impossible to know.
Yeah,
But having
exactly.
said
Yeah.
that, I know for sure I wouldn't be where I'm at now,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
I
so
believe it.
to your question, he and I would have conversations for about 2-3 months, just like that,
Awesome. Yeah.
for 2-3 months, nonstop, hours at a time. And he essentially helped performance coach me out of where I was.
Hmm.
And then we started kind of working on, okay, hey man, what do you want to do with your life, and all these kinds of things.
Hmm.
And essentially, I helped. He helped. Let's say he helped guide me in how to really refine and understand what my purpose is. And so, and then so that's kind of what happened. Once I refined that, and then it was off to the races at that point. I just kept training and running, and
Right.
once a week we would then have conversations every Sunday for a couple hours, Zoom call every Sunday, and so he was one of them for sure, and one of the people that I really recognized as someone that really provided a lot of support and information that I could use to learn from
Right.
and get better through.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
the other person is Seb Lavoie.
Right.
So he's about a half an hour drive from where I live. So
Oh, awesome.
so for me, it's like I know. So for some reason, and it's hard for me to explain, and I suspect a lot of, well, I understand now more, but I had when I met Seb and Sean. I met Seb about 5 years ago ish, and around that time. And when I met him first time, it was like I was drawn to him,
Hmm.
right? And for me, I understand what that is now. It's like I wanted to learn, I wanted to get better, I wanted to be kind of like that, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
for me, what I essentially did, and I said this on the Silver Core podcast, like I can assess people decently, or at least for me, I can, and I can see
Hmm.
if someone has knowledge or not, at least the
Hmm.
way I want to receive it.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, okay, these are two guys, cool. I'm gonna attach and just sponge everything out of them as much as
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And then through that process, I connected with other people, and other people over here and people over there, and it just kind of branched out into a tree. It was a tree, a little sapling, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the tree kept growing, and then the roots started really going even further and further and
Yeah.
further. And that's essentially kind of what helped me to
Yeah.
start anyway, to start.
Fantastic. Um, Ali and I haven't met either one in person. We've had correspondence with both gentlemen, Sean and Seb, and I get it. I can see exactly why you would be drawn to just be that sponge and just soak up as much as you can. I mean, Sean, yeah, there's so much I find that we draw out of Sean just even on a daily basis with his little 5-10 minute lives that we look forward to. We look forward to listening to. Just there's almost always a little bit of just some tidbit of information, something that we can draw from that we can kind of go, okay, yeah, I can better myself today than I was yesterday just based on that little bit of piece of information that I gathered from Sean and Seb as well. But Sean, I mean, it's funny. I laughed the other day. Ali and I were, listening to Sean on his 5 minute live before he does the collective podcast. And I looked at Ali and said, Ali, I said, you realize that we're listening and we're watching this guy wander around a market right now, like sampling food and stuff like that. But that's the impact that I think Sean has on a lot of people, that you're just sort of drawn to that intellect and what he has to provide to others. And you want to learn, you want to, yeah, absorb as much as you can from him. So
Yeah.
it's,
Well, for
yeah,
me, I recognize also what kind of person I am and how
right.
I learn and how I think and how so I understand myself a lot better. And for me, I can relate to how almost I can relate a little bit more with Sean rather than Seb, because Seb's emotional intelligence is like on a whole different level.
Mm,
Where for me, I'm not quite like that.
right. Yeah.
I'm a little bit more robotic or logical or analytical in that regard. Not saying that Seb isn't.
Yeah.
He very much is, but he
Right.
has also another additional thread or
Another layer.
another
Yeah.
layer to it
Yeah.
that adds more. And
Hmm.
so for me, what I was trying to do is look at both of those individuals and see what I could learn from both of them and combine them together for myself.
Right.
and
Right.
just try to figure out how to better function for me with some of the skills and suggestions that they may have offered, and then go from there.
Yeah. Awesome. It's yeah. It's been a really cool process to watch, and I think both Ali and I, following along with your journey, and I mean, we're pretty excited for 2025, as I'm sure you are as well, to see how everything unfolds, and I mean, neither one of us have any doubt that that's going to be a successful year, and but it's been exciting to sort of watch the development in yourself personally, like even from, start of 22 marathons to now, to the conversation now. And it's like, I'm not saying that you needed to grow or you needed to develop further, but it's apparent, like it's, and we see it, which is really cool.
I
So
mean, thanks, man. I appreciate that, and I'm working really hard, like
yeah,
really hard, to
yeah.
evolve and grow every single day if I can.
Hmm.
So I don't know if I am, but you saying what you just said, I appreciate that because I value not being the same. I value
Yeah.
growing as much as I can in whatever capacity that is, speaking,
Hmm.
listening, training, like whatever it is, because there's always I need to improve on so many things, right?
Sure. Sure.
So for me, if you were to look at me like, yeah, August 5th to now, I'm different.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that's like, and I grew so much through that process.
Right.
But I think for me, it's always the case. At least I'm trying to be like that. Like it's 6 months from now, I want to be entirely different again in a positive way. Just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And I suspect that'll happen because I'm putting myself in environments that I'm not used to. So
Sure.
what do I mean by that? It's like, well, the running stuff, yeah, but so many other things that I don't do that I'm doing. Like
Hmm.
last week, I spoke in front of about 500 or 600 high school students,
Right
right?
on.
And I've never done that before. And I
Yeah.
just got I got hit up. So a couple weeks ago, I met with the CEO of a nonprofit called Kids Play Foundation.
Okay.
And Kids Play Foundations all across Canada. It was started here in BC in the Lower Mainland Vancouver area by a current serving Vancouver police officer,
Hmm.
serving for 24 years. And through his work, he saw the effects of drugs, gangs, and violence had on kids,
Sure.
and
Right.
and also the lack of funds that some of these kids had to get into these things. So
Right.
he created an organization to help with that. And so essentially, Kids Play Foundation helps support, or at least helps try to remove kids from those environments, drugs, gangs,
Hmm.
and things of that nature. So,
Hmm.
I met with him a couple of weeks ago and I shared my story, and he was like, "Man, you should, we'd love to be able to have you speak to some of these high school kids about your experiences and things of that nature." And I was like, "Well, if you think it'll be helpful, like that'd be enough.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely, I'll do it." But then it's so funny. It's funny. I met with him on let's say a Thursday, and Thursday after I met with him, I was driving home, right?
Hmm.
And like 15 minutes while I'm in the car, he calls me right back. And he's like, "Hey man, so you're free on Tuesday?" I was like, "Yeah, what's going on?" He goes, "Yeah, we got a group of grade 10s. You want to speak in front of 300 of them?" I was like, "I've never done it before, but sure, I'll figure it
Yeah.
out."
Yeah.
And so that whole weekend, I was just like, "What am I going to say? What am I going to do? And how do I present it to?" It was actually not grade 10s. It was I think it was grade 8s. So I think they were like 12 or 13, right? Or 12,
Okay.
12 years, something like whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
So so for me now I'm thinking, how do I speak to a group like that with my story? So
Hmm.
now I'm developing that, right? So I would never would have went through that process had I not been asked to do something that I'd never done before. And then now I'm trying to learn how to do that better.
Yeah.
So I had that on a Tuesday, and then that following Thursday, they asked me to come out to a different high school. So I went to a different high school and spoke to 10, 11, and 12s, and it was maybe a couple hundred there. And again, evolving and growing through that process. How do I speak better? How do I write this speech to impact them? And I don't know if I did, but
Right.
I'm learning, right?
You are.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. So I've been asked again to go on the 12th of October to another high school
Yeah.
to kind of share again. And really, what I've been talking on is just my experience and well, the value of setting goals, right? And
Which at that age, like you mentioned grade 8 and then
yeah,
10, 12, 11, like that's exactly what sort of the topic that needs to be or can be addressed is, yeah,
Yeah,
setting
I
goals.
agree, man.
It's
But I think there's one other piece to it, or maybe a couple other pieces that I wouldn't have thought of maybe some time ago, but now I do. Is like, okay, yeah, the the importance of setting a goal is is very important for sure
Mhm.
for an individual. But I wanted to take it from a perspective outside of that, and I would say, what's the where's value, or what's the value of setting a goal, not just for yourself, but everyone around you?
Right.
So then I was trying to
Yeah,
explain that
even better.
the service mentality. So for
Hmm.
so one thing I was mentioning, and I was thinking, excuse me, I was thinking about was like, I set a goal. And this was the essence of my conversation, right? 2 years ago, I heard a podcast. I heard a guy named Cameron Haynes on that podcast talking about how he can run a marathon a day when he was training to run a 200-mile race. I heard that 2 years ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago, I made a commitment to myself 2 years ago. I want to be able to run a marathon every single day.
Yeah.
I had no clue how to do it,
Yeah.
but I said I want to be able to be someone who could do that. And then so I set this goal, and then eventually after 2 years, which was this past summer, I was
Right.
able to execute against that. But not only that, raised over $50,000 for charities, all the other people being impacted, all because of a goal I set for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. It
So,
just spreads like wildfire.
so I think
Yeah.
there's value into setting goals and getting after them, not for yourself, but for everyone around you.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more because I mean I think there's a bigger picture for what you're doing, and even like myself with the or us with the this podcast, and then
Hmm.
also the Rucksack March for Remembrance. It's not about like, yes, I have goals of achieving this and fundraising and raising awareness and doing 22-kilometer ruck march, like that's a great goal, but there's a bigger picture, is and that's the impact that it's going to have on either current serving members, current first responders, or past, that need the support. So there's always a bigger element to what I'm doing and what I'm looking at doing next, and obviously it's no different for yourself as well. Like these goals that you're setting for yourself, they're goals that are going to impact, like, yeah, so many people around you, and that's the
Yeah,
key, I think, really.
I think so. But for me, I try not to think that. I just say, okay, because if I do start thinking, like you were mentioning, oh, you were mentioning 2025, and man, I'm not even thinking about that.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not even like I'm like that's 2025 is like 10 years away. So
Yeah.
like I'm thinking, okay, what do I got to do now? What do I got to
Hmm.
do to get that extra step moving forward? Because I'm just trying to keep it simple. Because for me, I know what happens when I really expand things even further. It gets um I don't want to say sometimes it can be overwhelming,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Because again, like I mean, these are really, really, really lofty goals, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
for me, if I really sit and think about them, at times it can get overwhelming.
Yeah.
But then I'm reminded of why I'm actually doing anything or why I'm doing it. It's just to test myself and then help out if I can through the process, raise some money and awareness and help some people along the way. Well, then that's the real reason I'm
I,
doing everything.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, that leads to my next point. You're going to be here, you're coming in a month, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
be there.
So,
What the third, I think, of November. The second, no, the second November, second or third,
okay.
something.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's October 4th right now. So in 1 month's time, November 4th, we host our second annual Rucksack March for Remembrance here in Peterborough.
right,
It will be from my understanding, I believe it's the seventh annual across the country. I think there's 7 cities involved this year. So from Halifax over to Edmonton, several in Ontario, but it's pretty cool that it seems to be expanding a little bit more every year. And again, it's for a bigger cause. We did it. Myself and another serving member, we did it virtually in 2021 together. It was just the two of us, and we got out and we hammered out the 22K, and posted a bunch of stuff on social media, and Ian Hall, the organizer out in Edmonton, he contacted me and asked, he said, would you be interested in hosting one in Peterborough next year? And I kind of went, yeah, well, like, for sure. I mean, I don't, I I've I've organized some events locally in the past, kids triathlon years ago and stuff. So I have a concept and an idea of how to tackle that. And then the military background kind of helps with that as well. As I just again I treat it like a mission, and I write out my orders and kind of execute. So
How's the progress coming along? How's everything going?
it's great. Yeah, just this morning, Sean Francis, he's sort of the other event organizer that helps along with this. And then Ali, the three of us went out and we did kind of a reconnaissance ruck march to sort of map out the new route for this year. And we're pretty excited because it's going to take people through some of the beautiful parts of Peterborough, along the lift lock and along the water. And yeah, it's coming together pretty well. We've got our food truck's going to be on site the day of Till
Yeah.
Death Barbecue. They were our caterer for the wedding, and
So the one food truck,
yes,
what's it called?
Till Death Barbecue.
And so what kind of foods will they have on that day?
So they'll have a variety. They usually do well for the wedding. They did a brisket, which is amazing, but they've got pulled pork. They've got a few veggie options. They've got yeah, just a variety of like amazing smoked
So,
barbecue,
and
smoked
is
meats and
there
things like
anything
that.
else like in terms of like the participants? How's the registration looking for numbers?
Yeah, we're doing okay. So we're a month out. We're at 22 participants. We've got two teams. And again, I'm hoping to boost that and push that in the last 4 or 5 weeks here. Um, we do have support from our unit, like our local regiment. So Hastings and Prince Edward Regiment that I'm a member of. We're also going to have a team of serving members that are going to come on board for that. So we'll have some Army guys out, and then we're going to have some support team with the Army as well. And so we've got, I think one of the teams is corrections members.
Mhm.
I've reached out to police and fire and paramedics, still hoping that I get a response from them, and maybe they can get a team in as well. It'd be great to sort of challenge those organizations. And but again, I'm happy with 22. I
Sure.
mean, I last year we had 41. I anticipate that the final number will be probably around that, hopefully more. Maybe we get 50 participants this year, which would be awesome. Fundraising, we're sitting at just over 3,000, I think 3,200, something like that.
That's awesome.
Uh, yeah, so I mean, we set a big goal. We last year we set it at 5,000. I didn't know how well it would take off, or so we set a $5,000 fundraising goal. We nailed that and surpassed it. Set the next goal at 10,000, and then we moved it to 15,000. And so the final, tally, we raised over 15,000 in the first year.
Amazing.
Yeah, it
Awesome.
was it was great. So, and that, in support of Wounded Warriors Canada. So, great organization, kind of looking out for veterans and first responders and their families. So again, there's a greater cause to it, and a reason I'm getting behind it. I have friends as we speak that are kind of going through some struggles and tough times that we're serving members, and this is my part, my small part in doing what I can to support them.
That's
And
awesome, man.
yeah, and if it means getting out 22 kilometers with a rucksack on my back, then I'm happy to do it. So
Bro, that's the easiest part.
that's it. Yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Honestly,
Yeah.
that's the easiest part. People say it sounds so hard, but I mean, yeah, I don't say it's not hard. It's a challenge, right?
Mhm.
And w that's what we're here for, is to take on challenges and grow through that challenge. Otherwise,
Exactly.
what are we here for, man? Like, got to keep
That's right.
driving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it's funny. Sean Taylor was, teasing me about the whole wedding thing, saying, like, what's he going to do with all his time now? Well, just go right into the next challenge, the next thing. So, the Ruck March is happening now. And when that wraps up, then, I'll look for the next thing. It's just, it's a constant process, ongoing process. You're no different. I'm certain of that. So you've got, 2025 in the future, the distant future, that aiming for, and I'm sure once that's hammered out and achieved, then you'll be on to the next thing. So
Honestly, bro, I'm reading a book right now called The Surrender Experiment, Michael Singer. And I believe he's written a book, a bunch of other books. One of them's The Untethered Spirit or Untethered Soul.
sorry,
Untethered
what's it
Soul.
called again, Sach?
Um, The Surrender Experiment,
Surrender Experiment. Okay.
Michael Singer. And I'm about halfway done right now. And so I'll share what the concept is of the book and his experience. And I've kind of organically kind of done this over the last couple of years. And essentially, he's sharing his story of surrendering to the universe and what is being presented to him rather than his own logic and what he thinks he should be doing.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
for example, like, you know how we all see signs, something that's kind of pushing us in a direction
Yeah,
in a certain way.
absolutely. Yep.
So, for me, I'm now paying attention to each one of those things,
Hmm.
allowing them to, I don't want to say dictate, but having more of a flow state in life where
Right.
I'm not worried too much about creating too many things, but when things are getting created or I'm moving in a certain direction, these various different things will present themselves to me.
Hmm.
And then what feels organic and natural to me, I just kind of jump on and attack it. So essentially, the premise of that book was that
Hmm.
don't let your own mind get in the way. Don't let your own judgments get in the way. Just kind of whatever feels kind of organic and natural and something that's drawing you to something, maybe explore it. So
Yeah.
for me, over the last year, even more so the last 6 months, and probably a lot more now moving forward after kind of reading this book or reading half of it, I think I'm going to do a bit more of that and just kind of
Right. Yeah.
go towards things that feel like they're drawing me to them
Yeah.
and see what happens.
I like it. I like it. I mean, yeah, people ask me and ask everyone all the time, where do you see yourself in a year's time? Where do you see yourself in 2 years time or 3 years time? And if I look back at like 2 years in the rear, um, I don't know if I would have, put myself where I am right now. I don't know if I could have forecasted that. But, like you say, certain things drew me in certain paths that led me to where I am, and I love it. Like it's great. So, looking ahead, if someone were to ask me, where do you see yourself in a year's time or 2 years time, I think my answer would be, I'm like, I don't know, but I'm excited for it. Like I'm, whatever
I
is
think,
coming, what I'm gonna, there could be a path this way, it could be a direction this way, and we'll see where it goes. But
yeah, I mean, for me, I kind of have a rough sort of outline of what I want to do.
hmm
But if something comes up and compels me to move in a different direction, I'm going to,
sure,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So, I think there's something to be said. Like, if someone asks me what's the plan for the future, I don't know, but I'm going to do my best and I'm going
yeah,
to be of service and whatever the outcome is or whatever that turns into, cool. Like a year ago, I didn't think I would be coaching,
right, yeah,
right? It
yeah,
wasn't like, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks a couple weeks ago. I was like, man, I want to be a coach and I want to learn how to do it right. And not learn, but
mhm,
I've been coaching for most of my life for the last 20 years in some capacity,
sure,
right?
yeah,
And now I want to be able to at least, share some of what I've learned, but also learn how to be better myself through
yeah,
that engagement and that process of conversation with another person and seeing if I can, you know, be a benefit even further. So
yeah.
that I wouldn't have thought about that a year ago.
No, no, yeah, I believe it again, and something that pulled you into that path, and here you
Yeah.
are, and yeah, and I'm gonna steal kind of Allie's questions because I think it looks like you're gonna be stuck with me for the episode here.
It's
So
okay, man. I can
if yeah,
handle it.
if you were looking
I'll
forward to
deal with it.
yeah,
Fine, whatever.
exactly, yeah, if you were looking forward to chatting with Allie and say sorry, you're gonna be stuck with me for it, but she did want to question on that, like how's the coaching going, and because that's it's a new chapter for you, a new development. So how's everything going on that end?
It's good, man. Like for me, I'm a all in type of guy and really try to get after it and put a lot of pressure on myself to do certain things.
Hmm.
So I had to pare it back a little bit in terms of that regard and really get back to mm, really get back to being organic and not contrived.
Right.
So, I'm I'm just doing my thing, engaging with people, and I have a few clients now,
Hmm.
and I'll just service them the best that I can and keep moving forward. If more people want to talk to me and engage with me, that's cool.
Yeah.
If they don't, that's cool too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep doing my thing. If someone hits me up and wants me to work with them, then I will, if it
Yeah.
fits.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
so
I, I
it's
love it.
moving well.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, I suspect that there'll be individuals that you coach, and they'll draw things from you that will probably last the rest of their lives. Personally, I've had some great coaches and mentors in the past, and one that sticks out of my head is right from high school, and to this day, I hold him in the highest respect for just little things that he brought to my attention with coaching, and sort of I'm going to say the extra mile that he would go to sort of develop not just my physical attributes, but mentally as well, sort of like that mental resilience. And I give a lot of credit to him. And that was like, yeah, like I say, that was a high school coach. I've had several coaches since then. So, I'm sure there's going to be a lot drawn, from you for these
Well,
individuals.
I think also I'll learn through the process as well, right? And
Yep.
I had my first coach was my wrestling coach in high school, and
Yeah.
I still remember him fondly, and that was
Mm.
30 some odd years ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, I think there's always I think a coach is not just physical, man. Like it's really the mindset, right? And how to really think properly and how to really move forward in a way that's beneficial to yourself and to everyone around you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
100%.
mean, using physical capabilities and improving others' physical capabilities, but I don't know if that's even my strong suit, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know how to do all that. I know how to, support someone in terms of like they want to get into an amazing shape or if they want to get on a nutrition plan. Like I know all those things and I can kind of work with people through that process. But I think for me, where I find I want to really hone more skills or develop further or grow it even further is the mindset sort of connection and how to get people or how to work with people to get the best out of them.
Yeah.
And that's an ongoing process. Like I'm not the best at that, most definitely not. But talking with people and learning and becoming better is the plan, and just kind of just keep doing that.
Yeah. It's not a bad plan. Yeah, it's a pretty solid plan. Yeah.
Oh, thanks,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, Yeah, and again, I'll kind of go back to it. I said it earlier, but Allie, like I say, between the two of us, we both really noticed, uh, from August 5th conversation, and then to following, every day through the marathon, and then to where you are now in the last little while, and then sitting down with you today, like you seem to be in a really good place. Like things seem to be really, really clicking, I would say.
I
And
mean, look, man, I'm not without issue, right? So I don't want people to
no, it
think
is.
everything's
Yeah.
perfect and all
Mhm.
that. I struggle frequently with various different things,
Mhm.
but my overall arching my, mindset is positive, right? And
Right.
it's a good. I'm in a good place, man. I'm in a good spot. Is it difficult? Sure. Are there
Yeah.
challenges? 100%. Have I been experiencing some depressive sort of emotions? Yeah, I have been.
Mhm.
But those are always going to be there. And, um,
Yeah.
and as long as we're moving in a direction that's positive, man, I feel pretty good. I'm hanging out with my girlfriend. I'm in Calgary. I'm, you know, I went to jujitsu last night. I mean, there's nothing to really be um, upset or negative about. So I'm glad you're picking up on what I'm putting out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's apparent. I was going to ask you where you are. You're in Calgary right now?
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
out Juliet right now.
Okay. Awesome. Good stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I did have a question as far as, so I mean, you did 22 marathons in 22 days, and not, essentially coming from a strong running background. I know
Oh,
you've been involved.
it was a zero running
Zero.
background.
Okay.
Not even strong. It was like zero.
Zero. Even better. Yeah. 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 I like that you emphasize that. Zero.
Like
Um,
absolutely no fundamentals, no nothing, zero.
I mean, just went out and did it. It's yeah, phenomenal. But so yeah, so based on that, and then I mean, I know your background. You know, you powerlifting, jujitsu, all that. Was this sort of one of your, or maybe the most challenging physical sort of thing that you've tackled?
It's a good question. Hmm. I think most challenging mentally and physically together.
Yeah,
If it's
yeah,
just physical, I don't know, man. It's hard to say because when doing jujitsu is fun, but it's
yeah,
physically challenging,
yeah.
right? So you're having fun, but I've in jujitsu, I've torn my left bicep completely off, and I have my left tricep torn tendon, about 60% of it
Mm.
through jujitsu. But it's fun. I'm having a good
Yeah,
time. It's not like
yeah.
whatever. With lifting, I would say lifting was challenging in a certain way, like with bodybuilding and stuff, because it was very isolating. Like I wouldn't really hang out with a bunch of people. I would train and then diet and be on my own most of the time. I
Right.
would have some training partners from time to time.
Yeah.
So it's hard. I don't know how to answer the question. Like,
Well, I suspect
um,
too that because every sport is different, so every sport is going to have its physical challenges that are
yeah.
unique to that sport. So I think it probably pertains more to the mental resilience and the mental challenge, and like you alluded, that maybe it was, and that could be based on too that, like, the time frame that it takes to run a marathon is quite extensive when you compare like a BJJ session or powerlifting session, right? Like
Mhm.
you're out there in your element, running in that physical challenge, and then you've got the mental resilience to go through for hours at a time. Whereas a lot of those other sports, it's a lot shorter for time frame.
And
So
I think it's also individually dependent too, the type of person that's engaging in that specific activity, right?
mhm.
So, because I think it would depend on those individuals how they're flowing through that. And for me, I know what kind of person I am. I hated running from day one. I never liked it.
Right,
Never liked it. So right off the bat, I was starting off with a challenge, right?
yeah,
Mentally and physically, right off the boat. And to your point, yeah, you're running for 5 hours, and it's the resilience that's developed through running 22 days in a row. Like running at 42 kilometers every single day for 22 days straight is a grind mentally. Not
absolutely.
like physically, it's a grind, but for me, mentally, it was far more of a grind because you don't feel good.
Right.
Like you're in pain every single day, right?
Yeah.
And then so it's not only that too, right? So that was one element, one aspect of it, and I was also, was with my girlfriend for 22
Mhm.
days,
Yeah.
and we're in a new relationship. So as you can imagine, that adds a different layer to the stress and difficulty
Oh,
that's
for sure.
associated to something when you're doing an ultra endurance event. When in my experience, when I've done them, it's all about me. It's just about me. Forget everyone else. I got to do what I
Yeah.
do.
Focus
So
on
it was
you. Yeah.
it was navigating other things as well. So yeah, the 22 marathons and running those mentally and physically is I would even it was a spiritual experience
Mm.
more so than a physical activity that I was doing. It was
Mhm.
transforming me into who I am right now, learning how to communicate better when I'm dealing with things that aren't good. So like
Right.
I had to understand how to properly communicate better when I'm feeling stressed out. How do I talk
Yeah.
better? Like, and I
Yeah.
didn't do it great. I messed it up a bunch of times, but
Sure.
I think for me it was a spiritual experience, man. Like
Mhm.
running, 40 degrees outside, and I'm running on the highway, and you're in your own head and whatever, like all these different things you're trying to process while you're doing it. So for me, it was definitely more than just a physical um, endeavor. It was a spiritual one.
Yeah. No, I believe it. Yeah, yeah, you had a lot of other elements on the go there, which is which is good. I mean, it just
No, it was
is
awesome, man. Because
sounds like you
and
learned from it.
I mentioned this on I think on the Silvercore podcast. I was like, Like, man, there was so many challenges outside of the running piece
Hmm.
that I was gifted with,
Right.
that I was blessed with those challenges because I had to figure them out and had to understand how to do them and still keep moving forward. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't I wouldn't wish it was easier,
Right.
and because I learned so much and I developed so much. I mean, case in point, you like I just talked to you a month ago, and
That's right.
you're observing a difference in how I'm speaking to you right now. It's only been a month.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's something to be said when you really take on challenges that are that are larger than you think you can actually achieve, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you can test yourself with something that you don't even think you can do and you can do it,
Yeah.
man, that's something different, man.
Well,
Like that
and
does something different.
you said it, and there's no time constraint, or there's no time frame on when you develop and when you learn. For some, or some periods in your life, it could be, over a period of years. It could be over, yeah, a couple of years. And then other circumstances could force you to, not force you to, but could have you grow and develop in a short period of time, like, yeah, a month's time, just depending on what's presented in front of you. So,
If depending on what's presented in front of you, and if you're intentional on reflecting back on those experiences and how to do them better. So
right.
you could take on a challenge and do the challenge and not even reflect and just keep moving forward, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's really, and this is one of the things I've really learned from Seb is like, having a real deep introspective reflection on what you do and how you do it, and trying to be honest, like actually as honest as you can be with yourself in that
Hmm.
introspection,
Hmm.
um, has been helpful for me in terms of growth and becoming a better human. And really, that's all I'm doing. I'm just trying to be a better person, right? And I'm trying to be the best version of myself. And if I'm trying,
Yeah.
so that means I have to do a lot of these different types of things so I can be the best version of myself.
Yeah. That's our whole platform here. Like, we're rising out of our comfort zones, and it's, essentially to be better today than I was yesterday. And I mean, it sounds simple. It sounds like a simple recipe, but it's not. It's not that simple. I mean, you do have to put the work in, and you do have to overcome, whatever challenges are presented in front of you, but you can't shy away from them either. I mean, and like you say, you could take on a challenge, do the same challenge, a month's time or next time, and you really have to dig deep and question yourself. Did I do it differently? Did I improve on from last time, or did I just, do the challenge to get it done, kind of thing? So,
Mm.
and yeah, it just depends on how you want to look at it. Did you make yourself better, you know, this challenge than you did last time? So,
And why are you doing the challenge? What's the
yeah.
purpose of the challenge? Why am I engaging in this activity? Why
Mhm.
am I registering to do a 22K ruck march? Is it just to support others? Is it just to raise money, or is it also so that I can become a better person through that process? And let's say if you're going to do a 22K ruck march or a run or a half marathon or a marathon, okay, well, cool. Now, are you going to put your best into it? Are you going to
Yeah.
go all in to be the best version of yourself? Because some people will do a 10K and not even think about it, just go, "Oh, whatever, I'm going to do it."
Yeah.
But are you really growing in that? Are you really learning anything through that process? And I would argue maybe you're not if you're just arbitrarily just doing a thing.
Hmm.
But if you're intentionally thinking about it, even if it's you're doing a marathon and you're scheduling one marathon a year and you're like, okay, I want to grow out of this. Well,
Yeah.
now you might hire a coach, and now you
Hmm.
might really create more of a plan and a regiment to get better. Oh, and well, now if I want to run faster and I want to do better, well, I got to probably eat better and maybe get more sleep. So maybe there's some elements there. So there's so many things attached to really doing better on many levels, not just from a physical perspective, but from a holistic perspective. And I think if people are more intentional about challenging themselves,
Yeah.
they're going to see so much more growth. And the reason I'm saying this because I've just experienced it over the last 2 years. I've been constantly challenging myself nonstop really over 3 years. I can't explain my growth other than that. Like,
Yeah.
like I honestly can't. I can speak to someone I met, like I've known for 20 years, and if I haven't seen them for three and I meet them, they will not know me.
Right. Yeah. Oh, for sure. And
But that should be the goal.
yeah, absolutely. And the cool thing is it's contagious, right? Because we follow you and we see what's happening, and it's inspiring. So I know personally, I kind of think, okay, what am I going to do? What's putting me out of my comfort zone? What am I going to, what challenge am I going to take on next? And how is it going to make me a better person? And then, if someone's looking at me from the outside and they're seeing, what I'm taking on, what challenges I'm doing, maybe they're thinking the same thing. Like, okay, Dave's over there doing that. What can I do next to better myself? And so,
But they absolutely are thinking the same thing because
right,
you're not different than me, bro. We're the
right,
same.
yeah, yeah,
We are the same. So there's no difference. Like even like when people post a lot about David Goggins and these like I think there's a disconnect for people, and I was one of them. So I can admit this.
yeah,
But now that I understand a bit better, there's a disconnect. David Goggins is, I mean, for lack of a better way of saying it, is all of us. It's anyone. Anyone can do that
sure, yeah.
with
It's a mindset.
consistency of effort.
Hmm.
Mindset and consistency, right? Like he's been doing this he's 50, right?
Yeah, yeah,
He's been doing this for 25 years. He didn't just start running.
right,
He's been getting after it for 25 years.
yeah,
If you're
yeah,
doing the same thing for 20, like, bro, I've been doing the same thing for two, and look what I've done.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
if you just
exactly.
put a timeline to it, like another 8 years, if I'm doing the exact same thing for 8 years, where are you at then?
Oh, yeah, yeah, I know, it's amazing.
It's amazing what we can do, and it's awesome to see these types of people because we are them. They're not any better than us.
You said it.
I'm not better than anyone.
Yeah,
No one's better than anyone. If they want to put that effort in, they can absolutely achieve excellence in however they define it.
right. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And it's neat for me to watch even in our household, because like I'll give kudos to Allie right now, because I've known Allie for 4.5 years now, and to watch her develop and grow over the past 4.5 years, and especially in the last year, it's it's almost mind blowing. It's like, I'm not gonna say she's a different person, but she, in a sense, she kind of is. But she's really growing and developing, and she's just constantly looking for the next thing that's gonna develop even further and bring her out of her
So
comfort
here's a
zone.
question: mm, how does that inspire you? Being around that, it must, right? It must.
I draw from it. I
Yeah.
absolutely. I draw from it. Some days, like, I'm a physically active guy, but I have my ebbs and flows, and sometimes I'm getting after it and I'm training really hard, and then other times, like, kind of lazy sometimes, and I'll admit it. And there's Allie, she's down in our gym and she's getting after it, and then she's studying up on her yoga studies, because now she's in school again to become a yoga instructor, and then she's got more goals past that. And so I kind of, I see this happening right before my eyes in our house, and I kind of go, yeah, I gotta level up. Like, I got,
It's
this
awesome.
this laziness, yeah, like, get in the gym, get going, get
Iron
after it. And
sharpens iron, bro.
yeah, yeah, that's it, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
So
part of the reason. Honestly, it's part of the reason I wanted to even just start dating Julia.
right, yeah, for
Because,
inspiring. Yeah,
well, it's because I'm on the podcast. Thank you. Um, because I think it's important to be around people that are going to also drive you and push you, maybe not overtly, but through your own way, right? So for
nice.
me, I know what kind of person I am, and if I'm around
Hmm.
people that are doing something and I'm not doing it, well, then I'm going to get up and do it. So it's part
Yeah,
of the reason why I wanted to be around Sean or Seb or so for me, I don't engage with anyone anymore that isn't sharpening my blade.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and then I'm not sharpening theirs. So
Right,
it's got to be synergistic together that we're both making each other better, not one-sided.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So thanks, Julie. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, you should give her that, give her those kudos. Yeah. And just the same I do with Allie. And I agree. Our circle around us are typically people that are getting after it, and they're inspiring us, and we're inspiring them, and we're just feeding off one another, and it's awesome. It's great.
And
So
that's what we're all doing through the collective, I think, as well, right? Like in terms of
yes.
like across the country, we're engaging with as many people as possible and
Mhm.
trying to, I don't know, just do our best, and maybe we can create more of a collective across the country over another 8 years. Who knows, right? What it
Yeah.
looks like.
Yeah. I like where it's headed anyway. So it's
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we keep doing what we're doing and let the outcome be what it needs to be, as long as we're doing it with a good intention and we're trying to help, and
Yeah.
it's only positive, I think. I can't see it
Yeah.
being negative.
No, not at all. You said it. You said it, man. Listen, we're super pumped to have you guys come to Peterborough and be a part of the event. Yeah, I think it's going to be fantastic, and we're going to raise some funds, and we're going to raise some awareness, and we're gonna be better today than we were yesterday, and
Yeah,
make things
I'm
happen.
looking
So
forward to it too, man. I'm stoked to come out there, um, and meet as many people as possible and have some fun, and maybe I'll run some of that 22. We'll see how it goes,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and just have some fun, man. I'm looking forward to. I got a few buddies coming out, like so I connected with a buddy of mine. Haven't seen him in over 20 years. He was at RMC with me the first year, and
Okay.
so he's a major still. He's still in the army, and I connected with him. I go, hey, I'm going to be at this Ruck March in Peterborough. Are you going to show up? And he's like, he's only an hour away, so he said he's going to come out.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And then I got
He's
another
got no
buddy of
excuse an
mine.
hour away.
Yeah, so I'll hit him up again because it'd be nice to see him after freaking 23 years. And then another buddy of mine, he's in Toronto. He's reserves. He's going to come out and kind of just. He's got an injury right now, so he won't be able to take part in the ruck, but he's going to come hang out anyway.
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
then I think another buddy I connected with through social media, I think it's Sean Menzies Photography.
He reached out. Yes.
So he's
Yes.
coming. He'll be
Yeah.
shooting some shots and stuff.
Yeah. I'm excited for it. That's yeah. Yeah. We were chatting a little bit back and forth, and yeah, I'm pretty pumped to have him
Yeah,
on
I
site.
connected with him not too long ago, and I let him know that I'll be coming out there, and so he said he took the leave so he can come and have some fun, take some pictures. So
Fantastic. Yeah.
be
Yeah.
awesome.
Keep spreading the word, brother, because yeah, it's
I'll
good.
do
It's
my
gonna
little
be
part, whatever I can do, and
yeah.
but anyways, yeah, we're just gonna me, Julie, we're gonna come out and have some fun, and you know, have some barbecue.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Like you'll enjoy the food and
Yeah,
all of
man.
it. So yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Listen, Sach, it's been fantastic catching up again and seeing where you're at. Once again, like congrats on the initial phase. I know there's more phases and bigger things yet to come, but congrats on all you've accomplished so far. And we're excited to see what's coming next. And I have no doubt that you'll be back on the show again. So.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for the kudos. I appreciate it. I'm still grinding. I'm still pushing. Next year, we're going to be running from Thunder Bay, Terry Fox Memorial, to Mile Zero in Victoria, which is about 3,100 kilometers. So that's the plan for next year. The tentative plan is to run 60K a day for 52 days. So it'll be
Wow.
50
Wow.
ultras in a row.
Wow.
Um, so that's the plan. And
Okay.
you know, um, so that's the plan, and we're going to keep pushing and keep driving and keep raising the awareness and having fun. So that's all I'm about, and I just want to say thank you for the time to share some of my stuff. Appreciate
Yeah.
you, man.
It's great. It's great. Yeah. And we appreciate you. So, all right. We'll see you in a month, brother.
Yeah, man. We'll see
Uh,
you in a bit. If you need
uh,
anything from me, just drop me a DM, and we'll make it happen.
I sure will. Thanks, Satch.
All right,
All right.
bro.
Take
Take care.
care.